Millionaire single dad watches waitress feed his disabled daughter and changes her life forever. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. It was a cold winter afternoon in a high-end restaurant located in the heart of the city. The warm golden light from the chandeliers reflected off the polished surfaces, casting a soft glow over the guests. Among them was a single father, Jonathan Carter, a wealthy entrepreneur whose company dominated the market. He sat at a quiet corner table, watching his daughter, Lily, struggle with her food. At just 8 years old, Lily had a disability that made it difficult for her to eat without assistance. Jonathan had always tried his best to give her a normal life, but it wasn't easy. He had grown up without much and had built his empire from the ground up. Now, as a millionaire, he felt like the weight of the world was on his shoulders, especially when it came to Lily. As Jonathan watched her attempt to feed herself, a young waitress named Emily approached their table. Emily had been working at the restaurant for a few months, but she had already become known for her kindness and dedication to her customers. She had always admired the Carter family, especially Jonathan, though she never imagined she would have the chance to interact with them. Today, however, fate had other plans. Noticing the difficulty Lily was having, Emily walked up to the table with a warm smile. "Can I help you with that, sweetie?" she asked softly, kneeling beside Lily. Lily looked up, her face lighting up with a sense of relief. Jonathan, who had been watching in silence, couldn't help but feel a twinge of gratitude. Emily gently helped Lily finish her meal, and Jonathan was taken aback by the kindness she showed. He had been so focused on his work and his wealth that he had forgotten the simple joys of human connection. Emily, without a second thought, had made Lily feel comfortable, something he hadn't been able to do for weeks. "Thank you," Jonathan said quietly, his voice full of emotion. "You've done more for her in 5 minutes than I've been able to in days." Emily smiled, her cheeks flushing at the compliment. "It's nothing, really," she replied. "She's a sweet girl." But for Jonathan, it wasn't nothing. It was a small act of kindness that spoke volumes. Little did he know, this simple moment would change the course of both their lives forever. As Emily walked away, Jonathan couldn't shake the feeling that fate had brought her to him at exactly the right moment. He watched her leave, and for the first time in years, he felt something stir inside him, a sense of hope, of possibility. Little did he know, this was only the beginning of a journey that would forever alter the path of his life, his daughter's life, and Emily's as well. The question now was, what would he do with the opportunity that had just fallen into his lap? ***. Millionaire single dad watches waitress feed his disabled daughter and changes her life forever. ***. Hello everyone. Before we continue today's story, please take a moment to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's exciting new videos. It's quick, free, and helps us bring you more heartwarming stories like this. We appreciate your support. Where are you watching from? Let us know your city or country in the comments below. Thank you for being part of our community. Now, let's jump right back into the story. The following days after that unforgettable moment in the restaurant were a whirlwind for Jonathan. He couldn't stop thinking about the kindness Emily had shown to Lily. It was so simple, yet so genuine. He had been surrounded by business meetings and high-powered executives, but none of them had made him feel the way Emily did. She had given his daughter something more valuable than any gift. She had given her dignity and comfort. Emily, on the other hand, couldn't stop thinking about Jonathan either. She had seen the wealthy businessman in the restaurant before, but she never expected to interact with him. The way he watched his daughter, the way he was so involved in her care, it was clear he loved her deeply. But she also noticed the weight on his shoulders. Despite his wealth, despite his status, he seemed just like any other parent trying his best to make sure his child was okay. The next few days were filled with more casual encounters. Emily would see Jonathan and Lily regularly in the restaurant, and every time they crossed paths, she felt a little more drawn to him. She could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the stress of balancing his high-powered career with raising his daughter. And Lily, she seemed like a sweet, quiet child, always shy around others, but opening up slowly when Emily was near. One afternoon, as Emily was walking through the restaurant, she saw Jonathan sitting alone at his usual table. Lily was not with him, and she wondered if everything was okay. Without thinking too much about it, she walked over to Jonathan's table. "Is everything all right, Jonathan? Where's Lily today?" she asked, her tone full of concern. Jonathan looked up at her, a faint smile crossing his face, though his eyes still held that burden. "She's at home today. We've been through a rough patch, trying to adjust. Sometimes it's hard," he replied, his voice soft but filled with the weight of a father's love. "I understand," Emily said, her voice gentle. "It can't be easy, especially with everything else you have going on." Jonathan looked at her, surprised by how well she understood. "You seem like you've been through a lot yourself," he said, leaning back in his chair. Emily hesitated for a moment, then sat down across from him. "I guess you could say that," she said, her eyes lowering slightly. "But it's nothing compared to what you and Lily are facing. I admire how you handle it all." Jonathan shook his head. "I don't feel like I'm handling it well at all," he admitted. "There's always something I feel I'm not doing right. But Lily, she deserves the best. And sometimes I just don't know what the best is." Emily smiled softly. "I think you're doing better than you think. Being there for her is already more than enough." There was a brief pause before Jonathan spoke again. "I never imagined I'd find someone like you in my life," he said quietly. "You have this way of making everything seem easier, even when I know it's not." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected this conversation to take this turn. I just try to be kind to people," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know how much it helps, but I do know that little things can make a big difference." Jonathan looked at her with a mixture of gratitude and something more. He had spent so many years in his high-rise office, surrounded by people who only cared about the next big deal, the next success. But with Emily, everything felt different. She didn't ask for anything in return. She simply cared. That night, as Jonathan sat in his penthouse, he found himself replaying the conversation over and over again. There was something about Emily that made him feel like a different person, like he could be himself again. His thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. It was Lily, standing in the doorway with a sad expression. "Daddy, can I talk to you?" she asked softly. Jonathan opened his arms, and Lily ran into them. "Of course, sweetheart. What's wrong?" he asked, holding her close. "I miss Mom," Lily said, her voice trembling. Jonathan's heart broke as he held her tighter. It had been a long time since his wife had passed, but Lily still struggled with the loss. "I know, baby. I miss her too," he said, his voice thick with emotion. He kissed her forehead and promised, "We'll get through this together, okay?" Lily nodded, her tiny hands clutching his shirt. As he held his daughter, Jonathan realized something. He couldn't do it all alone. He needed help, not just with raising Lily, but with life itself. And Emily, with her kindness and her quiet strength, had shown him that maybe, just maybe, it was okay to let someone in. Emily had already begun to change his life, without even realizing it. But Jonathan had a feeling that this was just the beginning of something much bigger, something that would change all of their lives forever. Asterisk, asterisk, millionaire single dad watches, waitress feed, his disabled daughter, and changes her life forever. Asterisk, asterisk. Hello everyone. Before we continue today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please take a moment to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's exciting new videos. It's quick, free, and helps us bring you more heartwarming stories like this. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you for being part of our community. Now, let's continue with today's story. A few weeks had passed since that moment when Jonathan had first opened up to Emily. The connection between them had grown stronger, but it was still unspoken. Jonathan continued to visit the restaurant where Emily worked, each time watching her with more admiration. He found himself looking forward to their brief exchanges, the way she smiled when she spoke to him, and the kindness she showed Lily. He realized that every time Emily interacted with his daughter, she was bringing a sense of normalcy to their lives, something he had desperately been searching for. It was late one evening when Jonathan found himself sitting at his usual table, his mind racing with thoughts of Emily and the impact she had unknowingly had on his life. Lily was at home, having a rare evening without her father's constant attention. Jonathan had been trying to balance his career and his life as a single parent. But it wasn't always easy. His company was expanding rapidly, and the pressure to keep up with the demands had been overwhelming. But that night, as he sat alone, he realized something important. He had been so focused on his success, his career, and providing for Lily, that he had neglected the personal connection they both needed. He had neglected the emotional side of life, the human element that truly mattered. He needed more than just money. He needed people who cared, who understood the importance of the little moments in life. That's when Emily entered the restaurant, her presence like a breath of fresh air. She looked up, caught his eye, and walked over to him with a warm smile. "Hi, Jonathan. How's Lily doing?" she asked as she set down a glass of water on his table. "She's doing better, thank you," Jonathan replied, his voice soft but sincere. "It's just hard sometimes, trying to balance everything." Emily nodded, understanding the weight of his words. "I can't even imagine what it's like," she said, her tone gentle. "But you're doing your best, and that's what matters." Jonathan felt a strange sense of relief hearing her words. It was so simple, yet so comforting. "I don't feel like I'm doing enough," he admitted. "I know I'm providing for her, but it feels like I'm missing something. I just wish I could give her more." Emily took a deep breath, her gaze thoughtful. "You're already giving her everything she needs," she said softly. "You're there for her, you care, and that's what matters most." Jonathan was taken aback by the wisdom in her words. He had spent so many years pushing himself to be more, to do more, that he had forgotten the power of presence. He realized that Emily, with her simple yet profound understanding of life, was right. "You're right," Jonathan said, his voice steady. "I've been so focused on the future that I've missed the present. I need to be here for her more, not just in terms of providing, but emotionally." Emily smiled, her eyes sparkling with empathy. "It's not easy," she said. "But you're doing the best you can, and that's more than enough." As the evening continued, Jonathan couldn't help but think about how Emily had shifted his perspective. He had been so focused on building a future for Lily that he had neglected the importance of their present moments together. And now, with Emily's help, he felt like he was starting to understand what truly mattered. But the connection between Jonathan and Emily was still in its early stages. While they had shared meaningful conversations, neither of them had expressed their feelings outright. Jonathan knew he had grown fond of Emily, but he wasn't sure if she felt the same way. He had always been guarded, afraid of getting hurt or letting someone in. Emily, too, seemed to keep her emotions in check. She had grown fond of Jonathan, but her past had made her cautious when it came to relationships. She didn't want to get involved with someone who had so much emotional baggage, especially given the complexity of his life as a single parent. Despite their hesitations, the bond between them continued to deepen. Jonathan started visiting the restaurant more frequently, and they began to spend more time talking, sharing their thoughts and experiences. Slowly, but surely, the walls they had built around themselves began to crumble. One afternoon, Jonathan invited Emily to join him for a walk in the park. It was a casual invitation, one that he hoped would give them a chance to talk more outside of the restaurant setting. Emily accepted, and they found themselves strolling through the park, the cool breeze brushing against their faces. As they walked, Jonathan turned to her. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said the other night," he began. "About being there for Lily, not just financially, but emotionally. You're right. I've been so caught up in trying to make everything perfect that I've neglected the most important thing." Emily smiled softly. "It's not easy," she said, "but the most important thing is that you care, and that's what Lily needs." Jonathan nodded, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. "Thank you, Emily," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "You've made me realize something I didn't even know I needed to understand." As they continued their walk, Jonathan couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. The journey ahead would be difficult, but with Emily's support, he felt like he was finally on the right path. And little did he know, this simple afternoon would mark the beginning of a new chapter in his life, one that would change everything for both him and Lily. Millionaire single dad watches waitress feed his disabled daughter and changes her life forever. Hello everyone. Before we continue today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please take a moment to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's exciting new videos. It's quick, free, and helps us bring you more heartwarming stories like this. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you for being part of our community. Now, let's dive right back into the story. The next few weeks passed quickly, and Jonathan felt like his life had taken an unexpected turn. Emily had not only become a fixture in their lives, but also a source of comfort and understanding. As they continued to spend time together, Jonathan couldn't help but feel a growing attraction to her. It wasn't just her kindness towards Lily, it was the way she made him feel like he wasn't alone in this world. For so long, he had been wrapped up in his responsibilities, focusing on building his company, providing for his daughter, and maintaining his public image. But with Emily, it was different. She didn't care about his wealth or status. She cared about him, about Lily, and that meant more to him than anything he had experienced before. Emily, too, began to feel a deeper connection to Jonathan. She admired his dedication to his daughter, his willingness to be vulnerable in front of her, and the way he balanced his role as a father and a businessman. But Emily also carried her own set of insecurities. She had always been cautious about getting involved with someone from a completely different world. Jonathan was rich, powerful, and successful, while she was just a waitress struggling to make ends meet. She didn't want to be another person who would disappoint him, especially after everything he had been through. One evening, Jonathan invited Emily to dinner at a private restaurant. He wanted to do something special for her, to show her how much she had meant to him over the past few weeks. They sat at a quiet table near the window, the soft glow of the candles casting a romantic atmosphere over their meal. Jonathan looked across the table at Emily, his heart racing. He hadn't felt this way in years. "Emily," he began, his voice low and sincere, "I want to thank you for everything you've done for Lily and me. I never realized how much I needed someone like you in my life." Emily looked down at her plate, a small smile playing on her lips. "I'm just doing what anyone would do," she said softly. "I care about you and Lily, that's all." Jonathan reached across the table, gently taking her hand in his. "It's more than that," he said. "You've made me realize that I've been so focused on the wrong things. I've been so caught up in my career and my wealth that I've forgotten what really matters." Emily's eyes met his, and for the first time she saw the vulnerability in him. "You matter, Jonathan," she said quietly. "And Lily matters. You've been doing the best you can, and that's all anyone can ask for." Jonathan's heart swelled at her words. He had always been afraid of being judged, of not being enough, but Emily had never once made him feel that way. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said," he continued, "and I know that I want to be there for you too, not just as Lily's father, but as someone who wants to be a part of your life. I'm not perfect, but I want to try. I want to be with you, Emily." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She had never expected Jonathan to say those words. It was everything she had been afraid to hope for. "Jonathan," she whispered, "I don't know if I'm ready for all of this. I've never been with someone like you before. You have so much, and I'm just me." Jonathan squeezed her hand, his voice soft but firm. "That's all I want, Emily. I don't care about your past or your struggles. I care about who you are now. And who you are is someone who has changed my life, who has made me realize that there's more to life than just work and money. You've made me see that I don't have to do it all alone." Emily felt a lump form in her throat as she looked at him. She had never felt so seen, so understood. "But what about Lily?" she asked softly. Jonathan's eyes softened, and he smiled. "Lily loves you, Emily. She doesn't need anything more than your kindness. She already feels comfortable with you, and honestly, I think she's the one who's been teaching me what really matters all along." Emily's heart melted as she thought of Lily, the sweet girl who had captured her heart from the first moment they met. She had always been afraid of stepping into a role that she didn't think she could fill, but now, looking at Jonathan, she felt a sense of calm. "Okay," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm willing to give this a chance." Jonathan smiled. his eyes filled with gratitude and hope. "You won't regret it, Emily, I promise." The rest of the evening passed in a blur. As they finished their dinner, they talked more freely than they ever had before. They shared their dreams, their fears, and their hopes for the future. By the time they left the restaurant, Jonathan knew that this was just the beginning. He had found something that he had never expected to find, a connection that was deeper than anything he had ever experienced. Emily had opened his eyes to the beauty of life's simple moments, and together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. Little did they know, this was the start of a new chapter, not just for them, but for Lily as well. And their journey together would change everything. Asterisk. Millionaire single dad watches. Waitress feed his disabled daughter. And changes her life forever. Asterisk. Hello everyone. Before we continue today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please take a moment to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's exciting new videos. It's quick, free, and helps us bring you more heartwarming stories like this. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you for being part of our community. Now, let's jump back into the story. Over the next few days, Jonathan and Emily began to spend more time together. Their connection was undeniable, but Jonathan knew that they needed to take things slowly, especially considering the complexities of their lives. He had Lily to think about, and Emily, despite her warmth and kindness, still seemed hesitant to fully embrace the idea of being a part of their world. Yet, the more they talked, the more Jonathan realized that Emily was exactly what they needed. She wasn't just a waitress at a restaurant. She was someone who could make Lily feel normal, someone who could offer him the emotional support he had been missing for so long. One evening, Jonathan invited Emily to meet him at the park, a quiet spot where they could talk without interruptions. It was a beautiful spring day, and the flowers were in full bloom. Jonathan had been thinking about everything he had learned from their conversations, about the way Emily had opened his eyes to the things that truly mattered. As they walked along the path, Jonathan turned to her. "Emily, I've been thinking a lot about what you said before, about how I need to be more present for Lily," he said, his voice steady. "And I've come to realize something. I don't want to do this alone anymore. I don't want to be just a single father raising his daughter. I want to build something with you. I want to give us a chance." Emily stopped walking for a moment, taken aback by his words. She hadn't expected him to be so open about his feelings. "Jonathan, she started, her voice faltering. "I'm not sure I'm ready for all of this. It's a big change, and I don't want to make things more complicated for you or for Lily." Jonathan placed a gentle hand on her arm, his eyes soft with understanding. "I know it's a lot, and I'm not asking for anything big right away. I just want to be able to take the next step with you, to see where this goes. You and Lily, you both mean so much to me." Emily looked down at the ground, her mind racing. She knew that she cared about Jonathan, that she had feelings for him that went beyond friendship. But she also feared what would happen if things didn't work out. She had seen relationships fall apart before, and she didn't want to hurt Jonathan or Lily. But deep down, she knew that she couldn't keep pushing Jonathan away. She had seen the way he looked at her, the way he trusted her with his most vulnerable thoughts. "I care about you too, Jonathan," she said finally, lifting her eyes to meet his. "I just don't want to mess things up," Jonathan smiled, his heart lifting at her words. "I don't think you can mess things up," he said softly. "We're just two people who are trying to make the best of things, and I think we can do that together." The sincerity in his voice touched Emily, and for the first time in a long while, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The next few weeks were filled with more time spent together. Jonathan continued to focus on his work, but he made a conscious effort to carve out moments for Emily and Lily. He took them on outings, spending afternoons at the zoo, playing games in the park, and enjoying quiet dinners at home. Emily, in turn, took on a more active role in Lily's life, helping her with her schoolwork and spending time with her after school. She saw a side of Lily that Jonathan had always known, the sweet, curious girl who wanted to be loved and accepted. But Emily also saw the pain Lily carried with her, the silent struggle she faced every day because of her disability. It wasn't always easy. Some days were harder than others, especially when Lily became frustrated with her limitations. But Emily knew that her presence in Lily's life was making a difference, and that kept her going. One afternoon, After a particularly challenging day at the park, Emily sat with Lily on a bench, watching the sunset. "You know," Emily said softly, "you're really brave, Lily. I know it's not always easy, but you handle everything with such grace." Lily looked up at her, her eyes wide. "Do you really think so?" she asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Emily smiled warmly, brushing a strand of hair from Lily's face. "I do. You're stronger than you realize." As they sat together, Jonathan watched them from a distance. His heart swelled with pride as he saw how much Emily had already impacted his daughter's life. He had been so focused on his own struggles, on trying to make everything perfect for Lily, that he hadn't seen how much Lily needed Emily's gentle touch and understanding. The next day, Jonathan decided to make a bold move. He invited Emily and Lily to a special dinner at one of his favorite restaurants. It was a way of showing them how much they meant to him, of taking the next step in their relationship. As they sat at the table, Jonathan looked at both of them, his heart full of gratitude. "I want to thank both of you," he said, his voice steady, "for being here, for being a part of my life. I know it hasn't been easy, but I can't imagine it without you." Emily smiled softly, her heart swelling at his words. Lily beamed at him, her eyes sparkling. "I'm glad we're a family," she said, her voice full of innocence. Jonathan's heart nearly melted at her words. In that moment, he knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together. This was just the beginning of their journey, and he couldn't wait to see where it would take them. For the first time in a long time, Jonathan felt at peace. His life, and Lily's, had changed in ways he never expected. And with Emily by his side, he knew that they could handle whatever challenges lay ahead. Millionaire single dad watches waitress feed his disabled daughter, and changes her life forever. Hello everyone, before we continue today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please take a moment to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's exciting new videos. It's quick, free, and helps us bring you more heartwarming stories like this. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you for being part of our community. Now, let's dive back into today's story. Life seemed to be settling into a comfortable rhythm for Jonathan, Emily, and Lily. The little family had begun to carve out their own space together, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. Jonathan was no longer just the busy millionaire father struggling to juggle work and his daughter's needs. He had found something. He hadn't realized he was missing a sense of belonging, a connection with Emily that gave him strength and a new perspective on life. They spent evenings in the park, weekends, cooking together, and quiet nights at home, reading books or watching movies. Emily, who had once hesitated at the idea of becoming too involved, now found herself fully embracing her role in both Jonathan and Lily's lives. It was a slow, beautiful process of becoming a family, but it was one that felt right. Yet, as perfect as things seemed, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she was standing on the edge of something that might collapse at any moment. She had seen it before, relationships built on fragile ground, promises made in the heat of the moment, and lives that could unravel with just a few wrong steps. Jonathan, despite his openness, was still a man with a past, with expectations and responsibilities that could overwhelm anyone. Emily loved him. She did. But she also feared what it would mean for her future. Could she really fit into this world? Could she handle the pressure of being with someone like Jonathan? One evening, as they sat in the cozy living room of Jonathan's home, Emily found herself staring at Lily, who was curled up on the couch with a book. Jonathan had been busy on a phone call for work, his voice muffled in the background, but Emily's mind was elsewhere. She was lost in her own thoughts, uncertain of where her place in this life truly was. Jonathan noticed her silence, and after finishing his call, came over to sit beside her. "What's on your mind?" he asked gently, his voice soft with concern. Emily hesitated, unsure of how to voice the doubts that had been swirling in her mind. "I've been thinking about all of this," she finally said, gesturing vaguely around them. "You, Lily, your life. I never expected to be here, Jonathan. I never expected to be so involved." Jonathan's face softened with understanding. He took her hand in his and squeezed it gently. "I understand," he said. "It's a big change. I never expected you to just jump in and have everything figured out. But I want you to know that you're not alone in this. We're building something together, and that means you get to be a part of it. You don't have to carry the weight of it all by yourself. Emily looked at him, her heart aching with gratitude. But what if I can't keep up with all of it? What if I'm not enough for you, for Lily? Jonathan smiled and gently brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. Emily, you're more than enough. You've already done so much for Lily and me, just by being here, by showing us that it's okay to care. You're already part of this family, whether you realize it or not. Emily felt the warmth of his words settle in her chest, but the fear was still there, lurking in the back of her mind. I want to be here, Jonathan. I really do, she said softly. But I'm still scared. I'm scared of messing this up, of letting you down. Jonathan leaned in and kissed her forehead gently. You won't mess it up, Emily. We'll face everything together. I'm not asking for perfection. I'm asking for you, for us. That's all that matters. It was a promise. A simple, yet powerful promise that resonated deep within her. Emily knew that no matter how uncertain she felt about the future, she wasn't facing it alone. Jonathan was there, and with him, she felt like she could take the next step forward. As the days passed, their relationship continued to grow. Jonathan's work was demanding, as always, but he made more time for Emily and Lily. He took them on weekend trips, spent evenings cooking dinner together, and made sure that, no matter how busy his schedule got, he always found time to be present for his family. Lily, too, was thriving. Her bond with Emily had deepened, and she no longer seemed so withdrawn or afraid. She smiled more, laughed more, and even began to open up about her hopes and dreams. Emily, in turn, poured her heart into being the best role model she could for Lily, helping her with schoolwork and encouraging her to pursue her passions. One afternoon, as the three of them sat in the backyard enjoying the warmth of the sun, Lily turned to Emily with a shy smile. Do you think I could be a writer someday? She asked softly. Emily's heart swelled with pride. I think you could be anything you want to be, Lily, she said. You have such a beautiful way with words, and your imagination is amazing. If writing is what makes you happy, then go for it. Lily's face lit up with excitement, and Jonathan, who had been listening from the sidelines, nodded in agreement. I couldn't agree more, he said. You're capable of great things, Lily. Just remember, whatever you choose to do, we'll always be here to support you. In that moment, Emily realized that her fears, though real, were slowly fading away. She had found her place in this family. She wasn't just a bystander in their lives. She was an active participant, helping shape their future, one moment at a time. And as she looked at Jonathan and Lily, she knew that no matter where life took them, they would face it together, as a family. This was their beginning, and together they would navigate whatever challenges lay ahead. ***, millionaire single dad watches Waitress, feed his disabled daughter, and changes her life forever. ***. Hello everyone. Before we continue today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please take a moment to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's exciting new videos. It's quick, free, and helps us bring you more heartwarming stories like this. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you for being part of our community. Now, let's jump back into the story. After several weeks of growing closer, Jonathan and Emily's relationship had begun to shift from something tentative to something far more real. They were no longer just two people trying to figure things out, they were a family. Jonathan had been slowly learning to trust Emily with the most important part of his life, Lily. Emily, in return, had become increasingly comfortable with the idea of being not just Jonathan's partner, but also a key figure in Lily's life. It wasn't always easy. There were moments of doubt, moments when Emily would question her place in this new dynamic. But as the days passed, she found herself settling into her role. Still, the path forward wasn't always as smooth as it seemed on the surface. Jonathan was balancing his time between his demanding business and his role as a father. The pressure was starting to take a toll, and Emily could see the weight of it in his eyes, the way he would rub his temples at the end of a long day. She had always admired Jonathan's strength and determination, but lately, it seemed as though his burdens were growing heavier. One evening, as they sat together at home, Emily noticed Jonathan staring blankly at his laptop screen. "Jonathan," she said softly, "you've been at this for hours. Why don't you take a break?" Jonathan looked up at her, his face tired but softening. "I can't afford to take a break," he said quietly. "There's always something that needs to be done. I don't have time to rest." Emily crossed the room and sat beside him, taking his hand in hers. "I understand that the business is important, but so is your health. And so is our time together. You're not alone in this, you know. You don't have to carry all of it by yourself." Jonathan gave her a small smile, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "I know, Emily. But I'm the one who's supposed to take care of everything. I'm supposed to be strong for Lily, for you." Emily looked at him, her expression full of concern. "You're already doing so much for us, Jonathan. But you don't have to be strong all the time. You have me, and you have Lily. Let us help you, too," he sighed, leaning back in his chair, his hand still holding hers. "I don't know how to stop. How do I just let go of all this responsibility?" Emily squeezed his hand gently. "Maybe you don't need to let go. But maybe you need to trust that you don't have to do it all alone. We're in this together." There was a long pause as Jonathan considered her words. For the first time in weeks, he felt a sense of relief. It wasn't about abandoning his responsibilities. It was about allowing himself to share the load. It wasn't easy for him to accept help, but he knew that Emily was right. He didn't have to carry everything on his own. The next day, Jonathan decided to take Emily's advice and let go of some of the pressure. He took a few hours off from his work and spent the afternoon with Emily and Lily at the park. It was a simple day, but it felt like a small victory. As they walked through the park, laughing and enjoying each other's company, Jonathan realized something important. He didn't need to sacrifice his happiness and well-being to be a good father or partner. He could have both. He could find a balance. As the days went by, Jonathan made a more conscious effort to spend time with Emily and Lily. He began delegating more tasks at work, trusting his team to handle some of the responsibilities. And slowly but surely, the pressure he had been carrying began to lift. Emily, too, was finding her place more and more. She had always been wary of stepping into a family role, but seeing Jonathan open up and trust her had made her feel more confident. She realized that, in this new family dynamic, there was room for everyone's needs to be met, her own included. One evening, as they sat down for dinner together, Lily turned to Emily with a bright smile. "I made something for you," she said, holding up a small piece of paper. Emily took it from her, her heart swelling with emotion as she saw the drawing of a family. Jonathan, Emily, and Lily, all holding hands. "This is beautiful, Lily," Emily said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you so much." Jonathan looked at the drawing and then at Emily, a soft smile on his face. "I think she's right," he said quietly. "We are a family." Emily nodded, tears threatening to spill from her eyes. "Yes, we are," she whispered. In that moment, Emily realized that this was the life she had always wanted, a life filled with love, laughter, and people who truly cared about her. She had found a home, not just in Jonathan's house, but in his heart, and in Lily's as well. Things weren't perfect. There would always be challenges to face, obstacles to overcome. But for the first time in a long time, Emily felt at peace, knowing that they were all in this together. As the months passed, their bond only deepened. Jonathan continued to make more time for his family, balancing his career and his personal life with more care. Emily grew even closer to Lily, taking on the role of a loving, supportive figure in her life. And Lily, with her bright smile and endless curiosity, continued to remind them both of what truly mattered: love, connection, and the simple joy of being together. Together, they had created a new beginning, one that was stronger than any of the challenges they had faced. And Emily knew, as they sat around the dinner table that night, that this was just the start of their journey, one that would change everything for all of them. ***. Millionaire single dad watches. Waitress feed his disabled daughter, and changes her life forever. ***. Hello everyone. Before we continue today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please take a moment to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's exciting new videos. It's quick, free, and helps us bring you more heartwarming stories like this. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you for being part of our community. Now, let's dive back into the story. A few months had passed, and things between Jonathan, Emily, and Lily seemed to be falling into place. The family dynamic had grown stronger as they continued to spend more time together. Jonathan had found a balance between his demanding career and his role as a father. Emily had embraced her role as a mother figure to Lily, and their bond grew deeper each day. Yet, despite all the progress, there were still moments when Jonathan felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. As his business continued to grow, so did the pressure. The hours were long, and the responsibilities seemed endless. He had always been driven, always determined to provide the best for Lily, but sometimes he felt like he was losing himself in the process. One evening, after another long day at work, Jonathan came home later than usual. He was tired, mentally and physically drained. As he stepped through the door, he was greeted by the familiar sound of laughter coming from the living room. Lily and Emily were sitting on the couch, watching a movie together. Emily looked up when she saw him. "Hey, you're home," she said with a smile, though her expression quickly turned to concern when she saw how exhausted he looked. Jonathan smiled weakly and sat down beside them. "Sorry, I'm late. Another crazy day at work." Emily could see the fatigue in his eyes, the way his shoulders were tense, and she knew that he needed a break. "You need to rest," she said softly. "You've been working non-stop lately." Jonathan shook his head, trying to brush it off. "I'm fine. Just need to get through this next project. Then I can take a break." But Emily wasn't convinced. "Jonathan, you can't keep pushing yourself like this," she said gently, her voice full of concern. "You're burning yourself out, and I don't want to see that happen." Jonathan let out a long sigh. "I don't have a choice, Emily. The business is growing, and I need to keep up. I can't afford to slow down now." Emily sat next to him, taking his hand in hers. "I understand how important your work is to you, but you also have to take care of yourself. You're not alone in this. You don't have to carry the weight of everything on your own." Jonathan looked at her, his expression softening. He had always prided himself on being the one to take care of others, but he was beginning to realize that maybe he didn't have to do it all alone. Emily was there, offering her support, and for the first time in a long while, he let himself believe that he could lean on someone. "I know," he said quietly. I don't want to let anyone down. I've worked so hard to get here, and I don't want to risk losing everything." Emily squeezed his hand. "You won't lose everything, Jonathan, but you do need to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, too. We're all in this together, and you don't have to do it all by yourself." Jonathan smiled faintly, grateful for her understanding. He had always been afraid of showing vulnerability, afraid of admitting that he couldn't do everything. But Emily made him feel like it was okay to take a step back, to admit when he needed help. The next few days, Jonathan made a conscious effort to slow down. He delegated more tasks at work, trusting his team to handle things without micromanaging every detail. He started taking more time for Emily and Lily, spending evenings at home and weekends exploring the city together. He even began to let go of some of the guilt that had been weighing on him for so long. He realized that being there for his family didn't mean sacrificing everything else. One afternoon, Emily suggested they take a trip to the beach. It had been a while since they had a proper outing, and she thought it might be a good way for Jonathan to unwind and relax. They packed up a picnic and drove to the coast, where the air was salty and fresh, and the sound of the waves crashing against the shore was soothing. As they walked along the beach, Lily running ahead, Jonathan couldn't help but feel a sense of peace wash over him. This was what he had been missing. It wasn't the business success, the meetings, or the endless to-do lists that mattered most. It was moments like this time spent with the people he loved, creating memories that would last. As they sat on a blanket, eating their picnic lunch, Jonathan looked at Emily, a sense of gratitude filling his heart. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with emotion, "for everything. You've really helped me see what's important." Emily smiled, her eyes soft with affection. "You don't have to thank me, Jonathan. I'm just here for you and Lily. We're a team." Jonathan nodded, his heart swelling with love. He had been so focused on the wrong things for so long, but now he understood. The success of his business didn't define him. What defined him were the people around him, the family he was building with Emily and Lily. And as they watched the sunset together, hand in hand, Jonathan knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The road ahead was uncertain, but as long as they had each other, he was ready for whatever came their way. This was his real success, the family he had found, and the love that would always guide them through. Millionaire single dad watches waitress feed his disabled daughter and changes her life forever. Hello everyone. Before we continue today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please take a moment to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's exciting new videos. It's quick, free, and helps us bring you more heartwarming stories like this. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you for being part of our community. Now, let's jump right back into the story. As the months passed, Jonathan, Emily, and Lily found themselves settling into a new rhythm. The challenges they had faced earlier in their journey were slowly being replaced by moments of joy, laughter, and shared memories. The weight of Jonathan's work still loomed, but he had learned to navigate it with the help of Emily, who continued to be his rock. Emily had also found herself growing into her role within the family, becoming not just a partner to Jonathan, but a true mother figure to Lily. Lily, for her part, had become more outgoing, her once shy nature giving way to confidence. She loved spending time with Emily, helping her around the house and sharing her dreams for the future. Jonathan often found himself watching the two of them together, a deep sense of gratitude filling his heart. It wasn't always perfect, but it was real, and it was theirs. One evening, as they sat together at dinner, the conversation took an unexpected turn. Lily, now 12, had been showing a growing interest in writing. She had taken to reading novels and journaling, pouring her thoughts and ideas onto the pages with enthusiasm. Emily had noticed the spark in her, the way her eyes would light up when she talked about the characters she had created in her stories. Jonathan had always known that Lily was intelligent and creative, but he hadn't fully realized the depth of her passion until now. "Dad, do you think I could be a writer one day?" Lily asked, her voice soft but filled with determination. Jonathan smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "Of course you can, sweetheart," he said. "You have an incredible imagination, and I can see how much you love writing. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise." Emily nodded in agreement. "You've got something special, Lily," she said. "Your words have the power to make people feel something, and that's a gift." Lily's eyes sparkled with excitement, and for the first time in a while, she seemed more at peace with herself. Jonathan couldn't help but marvel at how far she had come. When they first met, Lily had been withdrawn, hesitant to open up to anyone. But now, she was finding her voice, her confidence growing with each passing day. As the evening wore on, Emily and Jonathan exchanged a look, both silently acknowledging the milestone they had reached as a family. They had created something beautiful together, something they had never expected. But as perfect as their family life seemed, there were still moments of uncertainty. Jonathan's business was continuing to thrive, but it was also demanding more of his time and energy. He had always been driven by his ambition, but lately, he found himself questioning whether it was all worth it. His family was his priority now. But there were days when it felt like he was being pulled in 1,000 different directions. Emily noticed the change in him, the way he seemed distracted and distant at times. She knew he was struggling, but she wasn't sure how to help him. One evening, after another long day at work, Jonathan returned home to find Emily and Lily waiting for him in the living room. Emily looked at him with concern as he walked in, his face tense and exhausted. "Jonathan, we need to talk," she said gently, her voice full of care. Jonathan hesitated for a moment, then sat down beside her. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice low. Emily looked at him, her gaze soft but firm. "I can see that something's bothering you," she said. "You've been distant lately, and I'm worried about you. You're doing so much, Jonathan, but you don't have to carry the world on your shoulders." Jonathan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know, Emily. I just feel like I'm stuck in this cycle. Work is overwhelming, and I'm afraid I'm losing touch with what really matters. I want to be here for you and Lily, but I'm struggling to find a balance." Emily reached out and placed her hand on his. "I understand, Jonathan, but you don't have to do it all alone. You've built an incredible life for us, but you also need to take care of yourself. I'm here for you, and so is Lily." Jonathan looked at her, the weight of his emotions lifting as he realized that he didn't have to carry everything by himself. "I know," he said softly. I don't want to disappoint you." "Or Lily." Emily smiled warmly, squeezing his hand. "You could never disappoint us, Jonathan. You're doing the best you can, and that's all we need. We're a team, remember? We'll get through this together." Jonathan felt a sense of peace wash over him as her words sank in. For the first time in weeks, he allowed himself to breathe, to let go of some of the pressure he had been carrying. He wasn't alone in this anymore. He had Emily and Lily by his side, and together they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. The next few days were a turning point for Jonathan. He began to delegate more at work, taking time to focus on what truly mattered. He spent more evenings at home, playing games with Lily, helping her with her writing, and enjoying the quiet moments with Emily. As the days went by, he felt a renewed sense of purpose, not in his career, but in his family. Emily, too, noticed the change in him. He was more present, more engaged, and it made all the difference. She knew that there would still be challenges, but they were ready to face them together. As the family settled into their new routine, Emily found herself growing even more connected to Jonathan and Lily. They were her family now, and she knew that no matter what the future held, they would always be there for each other. This was their new beginning, and Emily couldn't wait to see where it would take them. ***. Millionaire single dad watches waitress feed his disabled daughter and changes her life forever. ***. Hello everyone. Before we continue today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please take a moment to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's exciting new videos. It's quick, free, and helps us bring you more heartwarming stories like this. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you for being part of our community. Now, let's dive right back into the story. The days continued to pass, and Jonathan, Emily, and Lily seemed to find a new rhythm in their lives. Jonathan was learning how to balance the demands of his business and the need to be present for his family. Emily had become an integral part of their lives, and Lily's confidence grew with each passing day. The little family was beginning to feel whole, but even in the most peaceful times, life has a way of throwing curveballs. One morning, Jonathan received a call that changed everything. His company, which had been thriving for years, was facing unexpected financial difficulties. The pressure of it all came crashing down on him in an instant. He had worked so hard to get where he was, to build the life he had for himself and Lily, but now it seemed like it was all at risk. As Jonathan sat in his office, staring at the numbers and reports that made everything feel so uncertain, he felt a deep sense of panic. He had always prided himself on being in control, but now it felt like everything was slipping through his fingers. That night, Jonathan came home late, exhausted and overwhelmed. Emily could tell something was wrong as soon as he walked through the door. "Jonathan, what happened? You look like you've seen a ghost," she said, concern flooding her voice. Jonathan sighed deeply, running a hand through his hair. "There's a problem at the company. A big one. We're facing some financial issues, and I don't know how we're going to fix it." "It's bad, Emily. I don't know what to do." Emily's heart sank at the distress in his voice. She had seen him struggle before, but this felt different. "Jonathan, we'll figure this out. You don't have to carry this burden alone. We'll get through it together," she said, trying to reassure him. Jonathan shook his head, the weight of his fears still heavy on his shoulders. "I can't help but feel like I've failed. I've worked so hard for all of this. What if I can't fix it? What if everything falls apart?" Emily walked over to him and placed a hand on his arm, grounding him in the moment. "You haven't failed, Jonathan. You've done everything you could. And right now, we just need to focus on finding a solution, not letting fear control us." Jonathan looked into her eyes, seeing the unwavering support in her gaze. He knew she was right. He had to face this challenge, not alone, but with the strength and support of the family they had built. The next few weeks were filled with sleepless nights, countless meetings, and a whirlwind of decisions. Jonathan worked around the clock, trying to salvage his business and protect the future he had worked so hard to create for Lily. Emily was there every step of the way, offering encouragement and practical help whenever she could. She took on more responsibilities at home, ensuring that Lily's routine stayed intact and that Jonathan didn't feel alone in the process. One night, as Jonathan sat in his office, staring at the piles of work in front of him, he felt the weight of it all closing in. He had been pushing himself to the limit, but the more he worked, the more the problems seemed to grow. He was on the verge of breaking. But then he thought about Emily and Lily. He thought about how far they had come, about how much they meant to him. He couldn't let everything he had worked for fall apart, not when he had a family that depended on him. The next morning, Jonathan decided to take a different approach. He called in his team and asked for their help. Instead of trying to carry the burden alone, he allowed himself to lean on the people he had built his business with. He trusted them, just as he had learned to trust Emily. Together, they worked tirelessly, coming up with new strategies and solutions to save the company. Emily continued to be his sounding board, offering practical advice and emotional support. Slowly but surely, Jonathan began to see a glimmer of hope. The solutions they had implemented started to work. The financial situation was stabilizing, and the worst of it was behind them. Jonathan felt a sense of relief he hadn't realized he was craving. He knew that there was still a long road ahead, but now he was ready to face it, with his team, with Emily, and with Lily by his side. One evening, as they sat down to dinner, Jonathan looked at Emily and Lily with a deep sense of gratitude. "I don't know how I would have gotten through this without you two," he said, his voice full of emotion. "You both kept me going when I felt like giving up." Emily smiled warmly, reaching for his hand. "You didn't give up, Jonathan. You fought, and we were right there with you." Lily, sitting across from them, smiled brightly. "I'm proud of you, Dad," she said softly. Jonathan's heart swelled with love and pride. "Thank you, sweetheart," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm proud of you too, and I'm proud of us." As they sat together, eating their meal and laughing, Jonathan realized that the challenges they had faced had only brought them closer together. They had come through the storm, stronger than before. It wasn't just about saving his business or fixing the problems at work. It was about finding the strength to face challenges head-on, together as a family. And that, Jonathan realized, was the true measure of success. No matter what the future held, they had each other, and that was all they needed. Together, they would continue to face whatever challenges came their way, and they would do it as a team. ***, millionaire single dad watches Waitress feed his disabled daughter and changes her life forever. ***. Hello everyone. Before we continue today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please take a moment to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's exciting new videos. It's quick, free, and helps us bring you more heartwarming stories like this. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you for being part of our community. Now, let's dive back into the story. As weeks passed, Jonathan, Emily, and Lily felt a sense of stability they had never known before. The tension of the previous months was slowly melting away. Jonathan's business was recovering. And though there were still challenges, he felt more confident than ever in his ability to handle them. Emily had become the steady presence he had always needed, balancing out his drive for success with her calm and nurturing energy. Lily, once withdrawn and unsure of herself, was thriving. Her confidence had blossomed, and her dreams of becoming a writer seemed closer than ever. They had all found a rhythm, but life, as always, had a way of testing their newfound peace. One afternoon, as Jonathan and Emily sat in the living room, discussing Lily's recent school performance, the phone rang. Jonathan's heart sank as he recognized the number on the screen. It was a call from his lawyer. He excused himself from the room and answered, hoping for the best, but fearing the worst. After a tense conversation, Jonathan returned to the living room, his face a mix of frustration and disbelief. Emily noticed the change immediately. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice full of concern. Jonathan took a deep breath before speaking. "The company is facing a legal issue. A former partner is suing us for breach of contract. It could put everything we've worked for in jeopardy." Emily stood up, walking over to him. "Jonathan, we've faced so much already. We'll figure this out, too." "You don't have to do this alone." Jonathan shook his head, the weight of it all pressing down on him. "I thought we were past this. We've been through so much already, and now this." Emily placed a hand on his shoulder, offering silent support. "We've always found a way through. We will again." Jonathan took a deep breath and nodded, feeling the strength of her words. He knew that he couldn't give up. He wouldn't let everything they had built crumble. They would face this challenge head-on, just as they had done before. The next few days were filled with tense meetings, legal consultations, and long hours working on a defense. Jonathan threw himself into the situation, determined to protect his family and the life they had created. But as the days stretched on, Emily could see the strain beginning to show again. He was working tirelessly, but the pressure was wearing him down. One night, after another long day of work, Jonathan returned home later than usual. He was exhausted, his eyes heavy with fatigue. Emily was waiting for him, as always. But this time, there was something different in her expression. "Jonathan, you've been pushing yourself too hard again," she said gently. "You're burning out. You need to take a break. We need you here, not just in the office but with us, too." Jonathan sat down beside her, rubbing his temples. "I don't know how to stop, Emily. I can't afford to take a break. The stakes are too high. Everything we've worked for is at risk." Emily's heart broke at the sight of him, so tired and burdened. She knew how much he cared, how deeply he wanted to protect Lily and their future. But she also knew that he couldn't keep going like this. "Jonathan, you've done more than enough. You've worked so hard for us, but now it's time to focus on what really matters: your health, your peace of mind, and our family. We'll get through this together, but you can't do it by running yourself into the ground." Jonathan looked at her, the exhaustion in his eyes slowly being replaced with understanding. He had always tried to carry the weight alone, but Emily was right. He didn't have to. He had a family who supported him, and they would face this challenge together, just as they had faced everything else. The next day, Jonathan made a decision. He took a step back from his work, allowing his legal team to handle the details of the case while he focused on what truly mattered: his family. He spent more time with Emily and Lily, taking walks with them, enjoying the simple pleasures of life, and rediscovering the peace that had once seemed so far out of reach. The legal battle continued, but with Emily and Lily by his side, Jonathan found a renewed sense of strength. He realized that success wasn't just about winning in business, it was about having the support of those you loved and being able to share your victories and your struggles with them. As the weeks passed, the legal issue was resolved, and Jonathan's company emerged stronger than ever. The victory, however, wasn't just in the courtroom. It was in the way Jonathan had learned to balance his ambition with the needs of his family. He had come to understand that he didn't have to sacrifice his happiness or his relationships to be successful. He could have both. As Emily and Jonathan sat together one evening, reflecting on the journey they had been through, they both realized how far they had come. "I never thought we'd be here," Jonathan said softly, looking at Emily. "I never thought I could learn to let go and trust others. But you've helped me do that." Emily smiled, taking his hand in hers. "And you've helped me see that it's okay to let myself be part of something bigger than just my own fears and doubts. We're a team, Jonathan, and together we can face anything." They both looked over at Lily, who was sitting on the floor, reading one of her stories aloud. The warmth of the moment, the peace of being together, was all they needed. They had faced so much, and they had come through it stronger than ever. This was just the beginning of their journey together. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as a family, side by side. Asterisk. Millionaire single dad watches Waitress feed his disabled daughter and changes her life forever. Asterisk. Hello everyone. Before we continue today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please take a moment to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's exciting new videos. It's quick, free, and helps us bring you more heartwarming stories like this. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you for being part of our community. Now, let's dive right back into the story. The challenges that Jonathan had faced with his business seemed to be behind him, but as he settled into his new rhythm with Emily and Lily, life was starting to present a new set of trials. Despite the success they had achieved, The cracks of old fears still lingered under the surface. Jonathan often found himself caught between his ambitions and his family. Emily, ever perceptive, noticed the strain. She knew that while he was working to keep everything in place, his mind was still occupied with insecurities from his past. Jonathan wasn't the type to open up easily, and Emily had learned that she needed to be patient with him, but she also knew that he was beginning to carry too much on his own again. One evening, while they were sitting together after dinner, Emily finally decided to bring up the elephant in the room. "Jonathan, we need to talk," she said, her voice calm but firm. Jonathan looked at her, his face betraying his fatigue. "About what?" he asked, though he already had a sinking feeling. "About you," Emily said softly. "About everything you've been holding in. I see how hard you're working, how you're trying to make sure everything stays perfect for us. But you need to know, you don't have to do it all by yourself," Jonathan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know, but it's just. I can't help it. I've always had to be the one to make things happen, to fix everything. It's who I am. It's hard to stop when you feel responsible for everything." Emily reached for his hand and held it gently. "Jonathan, I get it. You've been through so much to get to where you are. But right now, you have a family who wants to help. You don't need to carry everything alone. You never have to." Jonathan felt his heart swell with emotion, but he still hesitated. I don't know how to do that. How to ask for help, or how to let go. What if things fall apart?" Emily squeezed his hand tighter. "Jonathan, you've already let go of so much, and we're not going anywhere. We're in this together, and you don't have to do it all by yourself." For the first time in a long while, Jonathan felt the weight he had been carrying lift just a little. He realized that, with Emily by his side, he didn't have to be perfect. He didn't have to fix everything. He could lean on her, and that was enough. Over the next few weeks, Jonathan made a conscious effort to delegate more at work, taking time to enjoy the simple moments at home with Emily and Lily. He started focusing less on the pressures of his career, and more on the joy that came with being present in his family's life. Emily's influence on him was undeniable. Her ability to see through his guarded exterior and understand his fears was something Jonathan had never experienced before. Emily made him feel understood in a way no one else ever had. As they spent more time together, Emily began to notice a subtle change in Jonathan. He was starting to relax, to enjoy life outside of work, and he seemed more connected with Lily than ever before. He was more present during dinner conversations, more engaged when they spent time together as a family. Emily knew they had found a new balance, but she also knew that Jonathan's journey wasn't over yet. He still had to learn to trust himself and others more fully. One afternoon, when Jonathan and Emily were walking in the park, Lily came running up to them, her face lit up with excitement. "Guess what, Dad?" she exclaimed, holding out a piece of paper. "I finished my story. You have to read it." Jonathan smiled warmly, kneeling down to her level. "I'm so proud of you, Lily," he said, taking the paper from her hands. "I can't wait to read it." As he began reading, he was amazed by how much Lily's writing had improved. The characters she had created, the way she expressed herself, it was clear she had a bright future ahead of her as a writer. Emily, watching Jonathan's proud smile, felt a lump in her throat. It wasn't just about Lily's success. It was about how much they had all grown together. Jonathan was no longer the man who kept everything inside, bearing the weight of his responsibilities alone. He was learning to be a father in a way he had never allowed himself to be before. He was learning that the real success was in the relationships he built, not just the achievements he ticked off. That evening, as they sat down for dinner, Jonathan put his arm around Emily. "I've been thinking," he said, looking at both Emily and Lily. "This is what matters most. You two, our family. I spent so long focusing on my work, but now I see what truly makes me happy. I'm so grateful for both of you." Emily smiled softly, feeling the warmth of his words. "We're lucky to have you too, Jonathan." Lily, with her usual enthusiasm, chimed in. "Yeah, we're the best team ever." Jonathan laughed, the sound genuine and full of happiness. "Yes, we are," he agreed, looking at his family with a renewed sense of purpose. In that moment, Jonathan realized that they had truly become a team. The trials and challenges they had faced were only stepping stones towards something more meaningful. Together, They had learned that life wasn't just about what you could achieve or how much you could accumulate. It was about the people you loved, the moments you shared, and the strength you found in each other. As they finished their meal, laughter filling the room, Jonathan knew that this was only the beginning. The future was uncertain, as it always is, but as long as they had each other, he was ready to face whatever came their way. No matter what challenges life might throw at them, they would face them together, united and strong. That, he realized, was the true measure of success. Asterisk. Millionaire single dad watches waitress feed his disabled daughter and changes her life forever. Asterisk. Hello everyone. Before we continue today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please take a moment to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's exciting new videos. It's quick, free, and helps us bring you more heartwarming stories like this. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you for being part of our community. Now, let's dive right back into the story. As Jonathan, Emily, and Lily continued to settle into their new life together, they found themselves facing both the joys and complexities of building a future as a family. After the challenges with Jonathan's business, the legal battle, and the emotional toll of it all, they were finally at a place where they could breathe. The house was filled with laughter, love, and a sense of unity that had been hard-earned. But just as they were beginning to feel secure, the winds of change began to blow once again. Jonathan had spent the past few months making more time for Emily and Lily, focusing on his health, and taking a step back from the intensity of his work. For the first time in years, he felt like he was truly present for his family. But one morning, as he was sipping his coffee, his phone rang. It was a call he hadn't expected. The news was jarring. His business, while recovering, was facing another challenge. One of his major investors was pulling out, threatening the stability of everything Jonathan had worked so hard to rebuild. The feeling of dread that washed over him was immediate. He could feel the panic rising in his chest. All the progress they had made, his newfound balance, his relationships, his happiness was in danger of unraveling. He had promised Emily and Lily that he would be present, that he would not let his work consume him again, but now it seemed like the very thing he had feared most was back to haunt him. Emily noticed the shift in his mood immediately. She could see the tension in his shoulders, the furrow in his brow. "Jonathan," she said, placing a hand gently on his arm. "What's wrong?" Jonathan looked up, his mind racing. He wanted to protect them from this burden, but he knew he couldn't hide it. "It's the business," he said, his voice tight. "One of the investors is pulling out. It's a big blow, Emily. I don't know how to fix this. It feels like we're back at square one." Emily's face softened with concern, but she didn't panic. "We've been through worse, Jonathan. We've overcome so much already. We'll figure this out, just like we always do. We're a team." Jonathan looked at her, his eyes filled with uncertainty. "I don't know if I can keep doing this, Emily. I don't want to drag you and Lily through another storm." Emily held his gaze firmly. "Jonathan, you're not dragging us anywhere. We're with you. You don't have to fight this alone." Her words grounded him, reminding him of the strength of their bond. He took a deep breath, his mind still swirling with thoughts of what to do next. Over the next few days, Jonathan threw himself back into his work. But this time, Emily was right there beside him. She helped him strategize, provided him with emotional support, and made sure that Lily, despite the chaos, felt safe and loved. As the days turned into weeks, they managed to stabilize the situation. Jonathan reached out to other potential investors, and with Emily's encouragement, he took a more collaborative approach, trusting his team and allowing them to share the load. Slowly, the tension began to ease. They weren't completely out of the woods, but they were moving in the right direction. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Jonathan sat down with Emily in the quiet of their living room. "I don't know what I would have done without you, Emily," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "You've been my rock. I've been so focused on my business, and I forgot how important it is to have people you trust by your side." Emily smiled softly, brushing her hand across his. "We're in this together, Jonathan. We always have been." Just then, Lily came into the room, holding a piece of paper in her hands. She had been working on something in her room, and now she couldn't wait to show her parents. "Dad, Emily, Look what I wrote, she said excitedly, waving the paper in front of them. Jonathan and Emily exchanged a look before both of them turned to Lily with smiles on their faces. Jonathan took the paper from her hands and began to read her latest story. It was a beautiful tale about a young girl overcoming obstacles with the help of the people she loved. As he read, Jonathan couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. He had watched Lily grow from a shy, withdrawn child into someone so confident, full of potential. She had always been a bright star, but now she was starting to shine in her own way. "Lily, this is amazing," Jonathan said, his voice full of admiration. "You're a fantastic writer." Emily nodded in agreement. "You really are. I think you have a future in this." Lily's eyes sparkled with joy at their praise, and Jonathan felt a deep sense of peace. In that moment, everything seemed right. Despite the challenges they had faced, despite the obstacles that still loomed ahead, they had something more valuable than success or financial security. They had love. They had each other. And that was enough. As Jonathan sat back, looking at Emily and Lily, he realized that no matter what came next, they would face it together. His business might face more hurdles, and life would undoubtedly throw more challenges their way. But they had already proven that together they could weather any storm. They were stronger than any difficulty, and the love they shared would always be their greatest strength. The journey they had begun was far from over, but for the first time, Jonathan felt truly at peace. With Emily and Lily by his side, he knew that the future was full of possibilities. Together, they could build whatever dreams they chose. And that was the greatest success of all. ***, millionaire single dad watches waitress feed his disabled daughter and changes her life forever. Hello everyone. Before we continue today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please take a moment to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's exciting new videos. It's quick, free, and helps us bring you more heartwarming stories like this. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you for being part of our community. Now, let's dive right back into the story. After facing the most recent challenges with his business, Jonathan had finally found a sense of peace and stability. He had learned the value of relying on others and not shouldering the weight of the world alone. Emily had become his anchor, and Lily, now flourishing in her writing, was the bright light that reminded him of the simple joys of life. Yet, despite the progress they had made, life still had a way of testing them. One chilly evening, as the three of them gathered around the fireplace, enjoying a rare quiet night at home, the doorbell rang. Jonathan stood up to answer, slightly puzzled by the late hour of the visitor. When he opened the door, he was surprised to see a man in a business suit standing on the doorstep. The man introduced himself as a representative from one of the largest investors in Jonathan's company. Jonathan's stomach tightened. "Mr. Carter," the man said, extending his hand. "I hope I'm not disturbing you, but I need to speak with you about an urgent matter regarding your business." Jonathan's mind immediately began to race. What could this be about? He had been so focused on his personal life, on rebuilding his family, that he hadn't considered the fact that the world of business still had its own set of unpredictable challenges. "Of course," Jonathan said, stepping aside to let the man into the house. He looked back at Emily, who had followed him into the hallway, concern written all over her face. "I'll be right back," Jonathan reassured her. The two men walked into the living room, where Jonathan sat with the investor. The man wasted no time. "We've been closely monitoring the performance of your company," the investor began, "and after some recent changes in the market, we are re-evaluating our position. It's come to our attention that the financial outlook might not be as secure as initially projected. We believe it might be time for a restructuring." Jonathan's heart sank. "Restructuring?" he repeated, trying to absorb what the man was saying. "Are you saying the investment is at risk?" The investor nodded. "Yes, that's correct. If the restructuring plan isn't approved within the next few weeks, we'll need to reconsider our investment." Jonathan's mind was racing. His company, his livelihood, was once again at the mercy of external forces. The weight of it all came crashing down on him. He thought about all the work he had done to stabilize the business, all the sacrifices he had made, and now it felt like it might all be slipping away again. The investor's voice pulled Jonathan back to the present. "We need your cooperation, Mr. Carter. We have experts who can help guide this process. But we need a decision quickly. Jonathan's mind swirled with questions. Was this another hurdle he couldn't overcome? He had already gone through so much to build his company, to keep his family safe. And now, it felt like the ground was shifting under him once more. After the investor left, Jonathan returned to the living room, where Emily and Lily were waiting. Their faces were full of concern, sensing that something was wrong. Jonathan sat down with them, his mind still reeling from the conversation. "What's going on, Jonathan?" Emily asked softly, her voice full of worry. Jonathan took a deep breath before answering. "We're facing another challenge with the company. One of our major investors is pulling out. They want a restructuring plan, and if we don't comply, they'll pull their funding." Emily's heart sank, but she remained calm. "We'll figure this out, Jonathan. You've faced harder things than this before. We've got your back." Jonathan looked at her, his mind clouded with uncertainty. "I don't know if I can do this again, Emily. I've already been through so much. I don't want to drag you and Lily into another storm." Emily placed her hand gently on his. "Jonathan, you're not dragging us anywhere. We're with you, every step of the way." Jonathan's eyes softened as he looked at Emily, her unwavering support reminding him of everything they had overcome together. He had learned to rely on her, and for the first time in a while, he allowed himself to let go of the fear. "I don't want to let this take over our lives again," Jonathan admitted. "But I also don't want to give up." Emily smiled gently, her eyes full of love. "You don't have to give up, and you don't have to carry this burden alone. We'll face it together." The next few days were filled with meetings and strategizing. Jonathan knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but this time, he approached it differently. He was no longer just fighting for himself. He was fighting for his family, for their future, and he had Emily and Lily to keep him grounded. In the midst of the uncertainty, Emily became his sounding board, listening to his frustrations, helping him sort through his thoughts. Lily, too, began to step into her role in this family. She was no longer just the little girl who needed protection. She was a part of the team, offering her own support in her own quiet way. One night, after a particularly long day, Jonathan sat with Emily and Lily. He looked at them both, his heart full of gratitude. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You've both given me strength when I didn't think I had any left." Emily reached out and took his hand. "We're in this together, Jonathan. No matter what happens, we'll get through it as a family." Lily, with her usual bright smile, nodded. "We're a team," she said enthusiastically. Jonathan smiled, feeling a sense of peace that had been missing for so long. No matter what came next, he knew they would face it as a family stronger than ever. The road ahead would be challenging, but with Emily and Lily by his side, he was ready to take on whatever came their way. They had already proved that love and resilience could overcome any obstacle. And that, he realized, was more than enough. ***. Millionaire single dad watches Waitress feed his disabled daughter and changes her life forever. ***. Hello everyone. Before we continue today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please take a moment to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's exciting new videos. It's quick, free, and helps us bring you more heartwarming stories like this. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you for being part of our community. Now, let's dive right back into the story. The days following Jonathan's meeting with the investor were filled with intense focus. He worked tirelessly to put together a new plan for the company. Every meeting, every strategy session, every call seemed to add more pressure. Despite the growing tension at work, there was an undeniable shift in the atmosphere at home. Emily and Lily had continued to support Jonathan, each in their own way. Emily, with her unshakable calm, reassured him when his doubts resurfaced. Lily, in her own quiet way, reminded Jonathan of the importance of family. They had created a bubble of peace together, but the storm outside still raged. Jonathan felt torn between the security he had built with Emily and Lily and the business that was his legacy. As the deadline for the restructuring approached, Jonathan's stress was mounting. But Emily, ever perceptive, noticed his increasing silence. He was pulling away, absorbed in the pressure of his work. One evening, as they sat together after dinner, Emily turned to him, her voice soft but filled with concern. "Jonathan, you're pulling away again," she said, her eyes searching his face. "I can see it. I know you're under a lot of stress, but you don't have to do this alone. We've been through so much already, and we're still here. You don't have to carry everything on your own." Jonathan looked at her, the weight of her words sinking in. "I'm just scared, Emily," he confessed. "I've come so far, and I can't bear the thought of losing everything. I don't want to disappoint you, or Lily." Emily reached out, taking his hand in hers. "You're not going to lose everything, Jonathan, and you could never disappoint us. We're here, no matter what happens. You've already proven so much by getting to where you are now. We're proud of you." Jonathan took a deep breath, her reassurance grounding him in the moment. For the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to let go of the tight grip he had on his emotions. He knew that, no matter the outcome, he didn't have to face it alone. As the next few days passed, Jonathan took a step back from the overwhelming pressure of work. He spent more time with Emily and Lily, giving himself permission to be present with them. They visited the park together, took long walks, and even spent an afternoon painting. Slowly, he began to regain his perspective, rediscovering the joy in the simple moments. But just when Jonathan thought he could breathe a little easier, another challenge arrived. One morning, Jonathan woke up to an email from his accountant with alarming news while the company was making progress. The costs of the restructuring were going to be higher than anticipated. His heart sank as he read through the figures, realizing that the gap was larger than he had calculated. The risk of losing the company had never seemed more real. He stood up, pacing around the living room, trying to think of a solution. His mind was racing again, the old fears creeping back in. Emily, sensing the change in his mood, walked over to him. "Jonathan," she said softly, "don't let this consume you. We will find a way, but you have to trust that we can handle this together." Jonathan stopped pacing, looking at her with a mix of exhaustion and frustration. "I don't know how to do that, Emily. I feel like I'm failing. I'm failing you and Lily." Emily stepped closer, taking his hands in hers. "You're not failing anyone. You're doing your best, and that's enough. We've always found a way to work through the tough times, and we will now, too. You don't have to do it alone." Jonathan looked at her, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. He realized that Emily was right. He didn't have to carry this burden alone. They had already weathered so many storms, and this was just another one they would face together. Jonathan knew the road ahead was uncertain, but he had a family who believed in him, and in the future, they could create together. That evening, Jonathan made a decision. He reached out to his lawyer and financial team, finally giving them the green light to move forward with the restructuring, confident that they could navigate through it. He made one last call to the investor, reassuring him that the changes would be in place soon. As the weeks passed, the situation began to stabilize. The restructuring was completed, and Jonathan had successfully negotiated terms that would allow his company to continue moving forward. The business wasn't completely out of the woods yet, but Jonathan had learned to trust in his team and in his ability to adapt. More importantly, he had learned that the real strength of the business wasn't in the deals he made or the investments he secured, it was in the people who supported him and believed in him, like Emily and Lily. One evening, after the tension had eased, Jonathan sat with Emily and Lily on the porch. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over everything. Jonathan looked at his family, feeling an overwhelming sense of gratitude. "I've learned a lot these past few months," he said quietly, his voice filled with emotion. "I've learned that success isn't about how much you have or how much you achieve. It's about the people you love. The people who stand by you through everything. I couldn't have made it through any of this without you two." Emily smiled, her heart full. "You've always been stronger than you think, Jonathan. We're just glad to be here, supporting you." Lily, with her usual enthusiasm, nodded. "Yeah, we're a team, Dad. Nothing can stop us." Jonathan laughed, the sound light and full of love. He realized that Lily's words were true. They were a team stronger than any challenge they faced. As they watched the stars begin to appear in the sky, Jonathan knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. They had already proven that love, trust, and support could overcome any obstacle. And with Emily and Lily by his side, Jonathan was ready for whatever the future held. Asterisk asterisk. Millionaire single dad watches Waitress feed his disabled daughter and changes her life forever. Asterisk asterisk. Hello everyone. Before we continue today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please take a moment to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's exciting new videos. It's quick, free, and helps us bring you more heartwarming stories like this. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you for being part of our community. Now, let's jump right back into the story. Months had passed since Jonathan's company had successfully navigated the financial crisis. The business was on a steady path toward recovery, and Jonathan had managed to regain a sense of control. But as he continued to work alongside Emily, balancing his professional responsibilities and family life, there was still a nagging thought in the back of his mind. Despite the success he had achieved, there were moments when he wondered whether he could ever truly have it all. Could he ever stop worrying about the future? Could he ever fully leave the stress of work behind and just enjoy the moments he had with Emily and Lily? For the first time in a long while, Jonathan allowed himself to admit that maybe it was time to take a step back and truly embrace the life he had worked so hard to create. One afternoon, as they sat together in the living room, Emily looked over at Jonathan, her eyes soft with concern. "You've been quiet today," she said. "What's on your mind?" Jonathan looked at her, his face a mixture of exhaustion and contemplation. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice low, "about everything we've been through. The company, the stress, the constant pressure. I don't know if I can keep doing it. I don't know if I can keep balancing it all." Emily placed her hand on his. "Jonathan, you've been through a lot, but you've already proven that you can handle whatever life throws at you. You don't have to do it all at once, though. We've built something strong together, and you don't have to carry the weight of everything alone." Jonathan's eyes softened as he gazed at Emily. Her words struck a chord deep within him. It wasn't just about the business, it was about his own ability to let go and trust that things would work out. He had spent so much of his life trying to control everything, but now, he realized, it was time to loosen his grip. "I want to be here more," Jonathan said, his voice filled with emotion. "I want to be present for you and Lily. I don't want to be so consumed by everything outside this house." Emily smiled, her heart full of understanding. "You are present, Jonathan. You always have been, and that's all we need." That evening, after the conversation, Jonathan found himself reflecting on Emily's words. He realized that the things that truly mattered weren't the achievements he had accumulated or the challenges he had overcome. It was the love they had built as a family, the memories they had created together, and the support they offered each other during the tough times. He didn't need to be perfect. He didn't need to control everything. What mattered was the people who stood by him, who loved him despite his flaws, and who believed in the future they could create together. The next few days, Jonathan made a deliberate effort to focus on the moments that mattered. He began to take more time off work, allowing himself to truly enjoy the time he spent with Emily and Lily. They went on family outings, enjoyed weekends together, and even took a short vacation to the coast. Jonathan discovered the joy and simplicity walking hand in hand with Emily along the beach, watching Lily laugh as she collected seashells, and savoring the quiet moments at home, just the three of them. One afternoon, as they sat at the beach, watching the sunset together, Jonathan looked over at Emily and Lily, feeling a sense of peace settle over him. "I never realized how much I needed this," Jonathan said quietly, his voice filled with gratitude. Emily smiled at him, her eyes full of affection. "We all need this, Jonathan. We just need to remember to make time for the things that matter most." Lily, who had been quietly listening, chimed in with her usual enthusiasm. "This is the best day ever," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling. Jonathan laughed, feeling his heart swell with pride and love. "I think it's the best day ever, too," he agreed, wrapping his arm around Emily and pulling her close. The next few weeks passed in a haze of laughter, joy, and family moments. Jonathan had made the decision to scale back at work, trusting his team to manage the day-to-day operations while he focused on what was truly important. He spent more time with Emily, planning their future together, and with Lily, encouraging her writing and helping her pursue her dreams. He saw the way Lily's confidence had blossomed, and he knew that the love and support they had given her had shaped the person she was becoming. One evening, As they sat around the dinner table, Lily, who had grown more confident in her writing, looked up at Jonathan. "Dad," she said softly, "I think I want to try to get one of my stories published." Jonathan's heart swelled with pride as he looked at her. "I think that's a great idea, Lily," he said. "You've got an incredible gift, and I have no doubt you'll do amazing things with your writing." Emily nodded in agreement. "Your stories are beautiful, Lily. You've got so much talent, and I believe you can achieve anything you set your mind to." Lily smiled, her face lighting up with excitement. "Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad." In that moment, Jonathan felt a sense of pride like no other. Not just for Lily's dreams, but for the life they had built together as a family. He had learned that success wasn't about how much you could achieve or how many things you could accomplish. It was about the love, the connections, and the people you had around you. No matter what challenges lay ahead, Jonathan knew that as long as they were together, they could face anything. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, Jonathan felt ready to face it hand in hand with Emily and Lily, with nothing more to prove except the love they shared. ***, millionaire single dad watches waitress feed his disabled daughter and changes her life forever. ***. Hello everyone. Before we continue today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please take a moment to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's exciting new videos. It's quick, free, and helps us bring you more heartwarming stories like this. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you for being part of our community. Now, let's dive right back into the story. As the months passed, Jonathan had started to feel like things were finally falling into place. His company was recovering, and his personal life with Emily and Lily had found a peaceful rhythm. The stress that had once consumed him had started to subside, and for the first time in a long while, he felt like he could truly breathe. He was more present for Emily and Lily, spending more time at home, enjoying quiet evenings together, and making memories that he knew would last a lifetime. Yet, as things began to stabilize, there were moments when Jonathan couldn't shake the feeling that something was still missing. He had everything he had ever wanted: a successful business, a beautiful family, and a life full of love. But there was a part of him that yearned for something more, something deeper. Emily had noticed the change in him too. She saw the moments when Jonathan would sit in silence, lost in thought, as if he were trying to figure something out that he couldn't quite reach. One evening, as they were enjoying dinner together, Emily decided to address the unspoken tension. "Jonathan," she said softly, her eyes searching his face, "I can see that something is still on your mind. I know everything's been going well lately, but I also know that you're not fully at peace. What is it? What's bothering you?" Jonathan hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to express the feeling he couldn't quite put into words. "I don't know, Emily," he said finally, his voice low. "It's like I've been so focused on the business, on making sure everything is perfect for you and Lily, but I'm starting to feel like I'm missing something. I don't know what it is, but it feels like there's more that I should be doing, something that's still missing." Emily listened intently, her expression full of understanding. "Jonathan, I think you've been so caught up in trying to get everything right that you might be forgetting something. You've already given us so much: your time, your love, your effort. But maybe, just maybe, you're forgetting to take care of yourself in all of this. Maybe you're missing the chance to focus on your own happiness, too." Jonathan looked at her, his eyes filled with uncertainty. "But what about everything else? What about the business? It's still so fragile. If I don't keep my eye on it, what will happen?" Emily smiled gently, her hand reaching for his. "Jonathan, we've built something beautiful here. And yes, the business is important, but it's not everything. Your happiness matters. You matter. I think you need to rediscover what truly brings you joy outside of work. What makes you feel alive? What makes you feel complete?" Jonathan sat back in his chair, her words sinking in. He realized she was right. He had spent so many years focused on achieving success, on making sure his family was provided for, that he had forgotten the importance of his own well-being. He had neglected his own passions, the things that used to make him feel truly fulfilled. After their conversation, Jonathan found himself reflecting more on what Emily had said. He thought about his life before the company, before the pressures of being a single father. What had brought him joy back then? He remembered his love for art, painting, drawing, and creating things with his hands. It had always been an outlet for him, a way to express his thoughts and emotions when words weren't enough. But over the years, he had let that part of himself fade away, buried under the weight of his responsibilities. One weekend, Jonathan decided to take action. He cleared a space in his office and set up an easel. He bought some paints, brushes, and canvas, something he hadn't done in years. Emily and Lily, both curious, watched as he began to sketch out a landscape, his movements slow and deliberate. It wasn't about creating a masterpiece. He realized it was about reconnecting with a part of himself he had long forgotten. Over the next few weeks, Jonathan dedicated time to his painting. He found solace in the strokes of the brush, in the process of creating something that didn't require perfection. It was his time to unplug, to breathe, and to let go of the stress that still clung to him. Emily supported him, encouraging him to explore this new path. And Lily loved watching him paint, often sitting beside him as she worked on her own stories. The time spent painting became a form of therapy for Jonathan. He realized that by investing in his own happiness, he wasn't neglecting his family or his business, he was strengthening himself so that he could be even more present for them. Slowly but surely, the peace he had been longing for began to take root within him. As time went on, Jonathan found himself more balanced, more at ease. His business continued to thrive, but he no longer felt consumed by it. He had learned to let go, to trust in the team he had built, and to make space for the things that truly mattered. Emily and Lily noticed the change in him. He was more engaged with them, more relaxed, and more present. They spent evenings together, enjoying each other's company without the looming pressure of work. They took trips, explored new places, and created memories that were filled with joy. One afternoon, as they sat together in the garden, Jonathan looked at Emily and Lily, his heart full of gratitude. "I've learned something important over these past few months," he said quietly. "I've learned that the most important things in life aren't the successes I've achieved or the challenges I've faced. They're the people I love, the moments we share, and the happiness we create together." Emily smiled, her eyes glistening with affection. "You're right," she said softly, "and we're so lucky to have you." Lily, who had been listening, jumped in, her face lighting up. "Yeah, we are. You're the best, Dad." Jonathan laughed, feeling an overwhelming sense of peace and love. He knew that the journey wasn't over, that life would continue to bring challenges, but with Emily and Lily by his side, he felt ready to face whatever came next. Together, they had built a life that was more than just success. It was full of love, joy, and meaning. And that, Jonathan realized, was the greatest success of all. *** Millionaire. Single dad watches Waitress, feed his disabled daughter, and changes her life forever. ***. Hello everyone. Before we continue today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please take a moment to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's exciting new videos. It's quick, free, and helps us bring you more heartwarming stories like this. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you for being part of our community. Now, let's dive right back into the story. Months had passed since Jonathan had learned the valuable lesson of slowing down and focusing on his family. His company was back on track, his relationship with Emily was stronger than ever, and Lily, now an even more confident and bright young girl, was continuing to grow and explore her writing. But as time passed, Jonathan realized that there was still one thing he had not fully faced: his own past. While he had been focused on work, rebuilding, and making sure that everyone around him was okay, he had never truly dealt with the wounds of his past, the pressure he had placed on himself to always succeed, to be the perfect father and provider, and the scars that came from years of feeling like he had to be everything for everyone. One evening, as they sat together at dinner, Emily noticed that Jonathan seemed distracted, his eyes distant as he played with his food. She had learned to read him by now, to know when something was bothering him. "Jonathan, what's going on?" she asked gently. Jonathan looked up at her, his face tight with emotion. "I don't know," he said quietly. "I feel like I've been running for so long, just trying to keep everything together, and now I'm realizing that I've never really taken the time to look at myself." I've been so focused on fixing everything for everyone else that I never stopped to fix the parts of me that are broken." Emily's heart went out to him. She knew how much Jonathan had carried over the years, how deeply he had always wanted to provide for Lily and make sure that they had everything they needed. But she also knew that Jonathan couldn't be the best version of himself until he took care of his own emotional health. "Jonathan, you don't have to do everything alone," Emily said softly. "You've already come so far, but it's okay to take time for yourself, to heal. You can't keep going like this without addressing what's inside. It's okay to face those parts of you that need healing. We'll be here to support you through it." Jonathan met her gaze, his eyes filled with vulnerability. "I just don't know how to start, Emily. I've been running from it for so long." Emily smiled, her eyes full of warmth and love. "We can start small, Jonathan. It's a journey, one step at a time." Over the next few days, Jonathan began to take the first steps toward healing. He started therapy, something he had been resistant to for a long time. But he knew it was time to face the things he had buried. He also began journaling, writing down his thoughts and feelings that he had never voiced before. It was not easy, but as he worked through his emotions, he began to feel lighter, like the weight he had been carrying for so long was slowly being lifted. Emily and Lily supported him every step of the way. Emily, as always, encouraged him to be patient with himself, and Lily, ever perceptive, sensed the change in her father. She had always been a sensitive and caring child, and now she could see the man her father was becoming, one who wasn't afraid to be vulnerable. One who was learning that he didn't have to be perfect to be loved. One evening, after a particularly difficult therapy session, Jonathan returned home to find Emily and Lily sitting in the living room watching a movie. He could see the warmth in their eyes, the quiet support they offered him, and for the first time in a long time, he felt truly at peace with himself. He sat down beside them, his heart full of gratitude. "Thank you both," he said softly, "for being there for me, for supporting me through all of this. I don't know where I would be without you two." Emily smiled and kissed him on the cheek. "You're doing the work, Jonathan. We're just here for you." Lily looked up from her book, a bright smile on her face. "I'm proud of you, Dad," she said. Jonathan's heart swelled with love as he looked at his daughter. "Thank you, sweetheart," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm proud of you too." The next few weeks passed, and Jonathan continued to grow and heal. He found peace not in the success of his business or his ability to fix everything for his family, but in the strength of the love and support they had for each other. He realized that he didn't need to be perfect to be a good father, a good partner. All he needed was to be present, to show up for the people who mattered most. As time went on, Jonathan began to feel a sense of joy that he hadn't experienced in years. His relationship with Emily became even stronger, built on a foundation of trust, vulnerability, and mutual support. And Lily, who had always been his reason for pushing forward, was thriving in ways that Jonathan never imagined. One afternoon, while they were out at the park, Lily came running up to Jonathan with a huge grin on her face. "Dad, you won't believe it," she said, breathless with excitement. "I entered one of my stories into a competition, and I won. I'm going to get published." Jonathan felt a lump form in his throat as he hugged his daughter tightly. "Lily, that's incredible!" he exclaimed. "I'm so proud of you." Emily, who had been watching from a distance, walked over to join them. "You've always had the talent, Lily," she said, her voice full of pride. "You've worked so hard, and now it's paying off." Jonathan looked at his family, his beautiful, strong family, and felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had learned so much over the past few months, about himself, about love, and about the importance of healing. He had come to realize that success wasn't just about the business, the accolades, or the external measures of achievement. It was about the love they shared, the support they gave one another, and the joy of seeing each other thrive. With Emily and Lily by his side, Jonathan knew that they could face whatever challenges came their way. They had already proven that they were stronger than anything life could throw at them. And as he watched Lily jump up and down in excitement, her dream of becoming a published author just one step closer, he realized that he was exactly where he needed to be, surrounded by the people who loved him, and with a future full of possibilities. Together, they had built something far greater than any business success, something that would last a lifetime. ***, Millionaire single dad watches waitress feed his disabled daughter and changes her life forever. Asterisk, asterisk. Hello everyone. Before we continue today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please take a moment to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's exciting new videos. It's quick, free, and helps us bring you more heartwarming stories like this. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you for being part of our community. Now, let's dive right back into the story. As the years passed, Jonathan, Emily, and Lily had come a long way from where they once were. What started as a fractured family, each of them grappling with their own challenges, had grown into a strong and supportive unit. Jonathan had learned how to balance his ambitions with his personal life, realizing that success wasn't just about the size of his company or the weight of his achievements. It was about love, connection, and the everyday moments that made life meaningful. Emily had become his partner in every sense, supporting him not just in his professional struggles but in his personal growth. She had been the anchor he needed, helping him see that he didn't need to be perfect to be loved, that his worth was not tied to his career or accomplishments. And Lily, his beautiful daughter, had blossomed. Her writing was flourishing, and she was on the cusp of realizing her dream of becoming a published author. As a family, they had gone from surviving to thriving, and it was clear to Jonathan that they were stronger than ever. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, Jonathan looked around at the life they had built and felt a deep sense of gratitude. He had been so focused on what he thought he had to do, working, striving, achieving, that he had almost forgotten to appreciate the blessings right in front of him. Emily, noticing the thoughtful look on his face, reached over and took his hand. "What's on your mind?" she asked gently. Jonathan smiled, his heart full. "I was just thinking about how far we've come. When I first started this journey, I was so focused on building something big, something that would make all of us proud. But what I didn't realize was that the most important thing was never the business or the money. It was us, our family, the love we share. And now, I see that everything we've gone through has brought us to this moment, and I wouldn't change a thing." Emily smiled, her eyes glistening with emotion. "You've always been so hard on yourself, Jonathan," she said softly. "But you're right. It's the love, the connection, and the moments we share that matter most. And you've created that. You've created this beautiful family." Jonathan looked at Lily, who was sitting across from them, a bright smile on her face, as she read a new draft of her story. "I'm proud of you, Lily," Jonathan said, his voice thick with emotion. "I've watched you grow from a shy, quiet girl into someone who has such incredible talent, determination, and heart. I couldn't be prouder of you." Lily looked up from her story, her eyes sparkling. "Thanks, Dad," she said, her voice filled with sincerity. "You and Mom are the reason I've been able to do this. You believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself." Jonathan felt a lump form in his throat. It was moments like these, simple yet profound, that reminded him of how far they had come and how much they had grown as a family. He realized that the struggles they had faced were not roadblocks, but stepping stones that had led them to a place of true happiness and fulfillment. As the evening wore on, they talked more, reflecting on their journey and discussing their hopes for the future. Lily talked excitedly about her plans to submit her stories to publishers, while Emily and Jonathan shared their dreams for their family and the life they wanted to continue building together. They talked about the importance of living in the present, of cherishing the moments they had together, and of continuing to support each other through whatever challenges the future might hold. Later that night, as Jonathan sat on the porch with Emily, watching the stars, he felt an overwhelming sense of peace. They had weathered so many storms, and yet, here they were, stronger than ever. He had come to understand that it wasn't the accomplishments that mattered, it was the love they had for each other, the way they supported each other through thick and thin, and the way they found joy in the everyday moments of life. "I don't know what the future holds," Jonathan said softly, "but I know that as long as we're together, we'll be able to face anything. We've already proven that." Emily leaned her head against his shoulder, her hand in his. "I agree," she said quietly. "We've been through so much, and we've come out stronger. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." Jonathan smiled, his heart swelling with love for the woman beside him and for the family they had created. The future was uncertain, as it always is, but for the first time, he felt completely at peace with whatever it might bring. They were a family unbreakable, resilient, and full of love. And with that love, Jonathan knew they could face anything that came their way. The journey they had begun so many years ago had led them to this moment, and he was ready for whatever came next, knowing that together, they would continue to build a life full of love, joy, and the strength to face whatever challenges lay ahead. With Emily and Lily by his side, Jonathan felt ready for anything the future might bring. They had already proven that, together, they could handle whatever came their way. And that, he realized, was the greatest success of all.